What is going on, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Today we are checking out the Walrus Audio Voyager Mark II Overdrive. This has all the same magic of the original Voyager, which was Klon inspired, but it's got some added features that are really cool. One of those features is a sweepable mid boost or cut, which is really, really useful. Along with that, you are now able to choose between germanium and silicon diodes, symmetric or asymmetric. And speaking of that, I'll just go through the 5 different options you have. And I'm actually going to look at the card that comes in the box because sometimes my brain don't work so good. So I have to, I just forget. So I got to read it. So you can choose, as I mentioned, between germanium diodes and silicon diodes. Within these 5 modes, mode 1 is going to be that classic germanium diode, and specifically the 1N34A for you guys that like to nerd out on that. That's mode 1. Mode 2 is the same germanium diode, but with a bass boost, and we'll definitely check that out. Mode 3 switches you over to silicon diodes. This is going to be more open. I tend to gravitate towards silicon because it is more open. It's a little bit more dynamic. So that's mode 3. That's when you switch over to silicon diodes. Mode 4 is silicon diodes, but asymmetric as opposed to symmetric. That's even more open, less compressed, sounds really great. Mode 5 sticks with the asymmetric silicon diodes, but with a bass boost again, and both of those settings, so settings 2 and setting 5, have a bass boost that's very apparent, and we'll check that out in the demo for sure. So what's on top of this thing? You've got volume control, tone control, gain, and then the aforementioned mid boost or cut. It's center detented, so you know where it's flat, and then you can choose between or sweep between 350 hertz to around 550 in the center, all the way up to 2K, so a really broad sweep. And then of course the last control is a rotary control with those 5 different positions, so you can choose between the 2 germanium settings and then the 3 silicon diode settings. And then on the bottom of the box, soft touch switches, which I love. On the left side is your bypass, and the right side is the switch for the mid boost. I really dig having everything on the top of the box that way. It just saves room on the pedal board. But yeah, let's check this thing out. It's the Walrus Audio Voyager Mark II Overdrive. Okay, let's check out the Voyager Mark II. Here's just the guitar into the amp. And here is the Voyager Mark II. Okay, mindless, seemingly endless noodling, so that you guys can hear what's going on. I tried to start with the more overdriven thing, and for me, especially with a clon style pedal, I don't gravitate there. But when I first turned the pedal on, I had everything kind of cranked. I was in the fourth mode, which is asymmetric silicon diodes. That's the first thing I heard, which I'm not used to gravitating towards on a clon style pedal. But I just instantly heard that. It just sounded really big, especially for a rhythm track. And then I did all the soloing in position 5, which is the same thing, but it does add quite a bit of lows. And some perceived gain. And then if I needed to tweak differently, I still had room to move on the treble, but I could also add, I really liked adding 2K, which is up top. So it's like a high mid, and then quite a bit of level to make things clearer sounding. And I'll go into the other different modes, but I wanted to start there and just kind of let you know where my mind was going when I was first discovering this pedal. Let's go all the way over to mode 1, which is going to be more the classic germanium diode. And we'll just start there, and I'll just tweak through some of the controls for you so you can hear it. So for me, this is more the classic germanium kind of clon style tone. I'll just sweep the gain for you. Gets more of that bark as you start cranking the gain. Normally, especially with Nashville players, myself included, I'll hit the amp harder. So I'll dial the pedal cleaner. And just hit the amp harder with less gain, and then dial from there. Now the next mode, well, let me do this. I'll sweep the treble off. But yeah, it sits around there for me. Just depends on the setting I'm using. So that's mode 1. We'll come back to the mid boost and cut here in a second. Mode 2 is the same exact thing, same germanium diodes, but with the bass boost. And they say trust us, and I do trust them. Quite a bit more lows there. Now that's where I liked that it sounded really rich and full in the bottom, but it's a pretty big spread out low end. So that's where I started reaching for the mid boost in this case. You can cut, but what I ended up doing was picking closer to like a 2K frequency. To get that clarity back along with the lows. Because without it, that sounds great by itself, but in a mix, that would take up a little bit too much space. So it's still bigger than this. So say you want more low end. That's a lot more low end, but now I can add the mid boost. And there is some perceived gain there. So you just turn the gain down. Okay, so that's what's happening between those two. Once you move from that, we're switching to silicon diodes. And in this case, it starts out symmetric with no bass boost, none of that. So I'll shut the EQ, the mid boost, back off and let you hear what that's doing. So from here, so it's a little bit, certainly less compressed, more open. I tend to gravitate towards this sound just because of the clarity, and I like a little bit less compression. I'll go straight from that to the same silicon diodes, but asymmetric. Now in this case, it's subtle. It feels less compressed still, more open. That's where I started and really dug it. 5, position 5 or mode 5 is the same exact thing, but once again with a bass boost. Quite a bit of bass boost again, but once again I take advantage of that mid frequency. It's just to give you guys an idea of how valuable that is, really going through all the modes, because we could go back to, let's go to the silicon, which is 3 symmetrical, and let's just check out what this this mid boost and cut is doing. I'll just go ahead and crank the mid up, and I'm just going to sweep the frequency. Do the same thing cutting. So super valuable. I like that it has a detent that lets you know where it's essentially flat. So just in that, just cutting and boosting, I was able to go from like a really sweet, almost blues tone for neck position to almost a treble booster. So obviously tons of versatility there in how you can dial the pedal in. Of course, with all these different modes, they feel different. They definitely, some feel more open, others feel a little bit more squishy. The different diodes break up differently, or I should say clip differently. The tone circuit is really usable and really broad. You can push the amp as hard as you need to, or have it sit more at unity. So that is the Voyager by Walrus. It's the Mark II. If you've got any questions about it, as I always say, definitely go to the website. If they have a manual for download, download the manual. That way, that's the quickest way to get questions answered. And as always, I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you on the next one.